Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey, this is Alex. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. This week we dive right into Theros. We've got 37 spoilers to talk about for you, and make quite a few discoveries about new card type mashups and all sorts of crazy little abilities and interactions. So we go through it card by card. I just want to remind you, Mortarpod is brought to you by VarenCamp.com. Scott Varenkamp designed the layout of our website. I think he did a great job. A lot of people write us and tell us that they still like it, so go check out his portfolio, and that's at VerenCamp.com, VarenCamp.com. And it's also brought to you by SeemsGoodMagic.com. I've been recording draft videos for the last couple of years now, and I've built quite a library, so if you want to look at some of the formats that I've played, I mean, I'm currently drafting M14, done a bunch of drafts for that. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback and a lot of good input from people, so I appreciate that. Expect to see some more drafts, but until then, enjoy this podcast all about Theros. Okay, Jake.
Hi.
Got some Theros spoilers to talk about. It's pretty exciting.
Right.
Lot of new cards already coming out. Is this like about the same amount that we should expect to see by now? I mean, it's coming out in beginning of October, right?
No, the end of September this one is.
Okay.
So this is about right. They're actually going to start the real previews this week too. So, this is about in line with what we should probably expect to have the full set
2 weeks or something?
Probably most of the set in 2 weeks, and then the full set the second to last week in September.
Okay.
So the week of the pre-release is the week when Wizards actually spoils the whole set.
Okay. Well, why don't you explain what you mean by the previews? Like, what kind of previews can we expect?
I mean the Wizards of the Coast sponsored previews. So ones that aren't necessarily, like some of the cards that have been spoiled so far were speculation, are still in speculation form, but are basically confirmed. Wizards of the Coast then has their own ones that they or either they themselves spoil, or another site or magazine, I guess there aren't many
confirms
of those, gets to spoil it actually.
Okay.
They allow other websites to spoil cards too, so they might get it like a common or something like that that's just based on the set to allow somebody to write an article about it. But it's something that Wizards of the Coast does that's pretty sweet, actually, that you can, I think, just request to, like, their brand rep or brand manager, and, if you explain with good reason and that you want to spoil a card for them or whatever, they might give you something. It would be maybe a really innocuous common, but it would be something.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, well, let's just jump right into it. There's quite a few we need to cover. How many of these are 57 spoilers are lands? Is it 15?
No, 20.
Okay.
It's 4 times 5 basic.
So currently we're sitting at about 37 spoilers. We've actually talked about 2 already. Palu Kranos, where we got the introduction to Monstrosity.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the name of the...
It's Siamede and Annex? Or
Annex and Siamede. And that was the 3/2 First Strike Vigilance introduction to Heroic, which it turned out we were correct that Heroic has...
it's
triggered
always
the same
triggered
way. Yeah.
one way, but like Domain or whatever, it
has different effects.
The effect is only triggered that one way,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's its own thing beyond that.
It seems like a relatively easy thing to trigger too. It's kind of cool that you can trigger some of Heroic off of a removal spell.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you could technically, if you needed that rare wolf guy that makes 3 lands wolves that we'll talk about.
Oh yeah.
You could like target him with removal just to make sure that your lands get triggered so you can attack him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like almost different versatile ways. Even like a tiny removal that wouldn't actually kill your creature
Well,
could
and
still
that
trigger
green
it.
one in particular is a 4/5, so there's a lot of
Light removal you could use.
You could magma spray it
Yeah,
and get your warriors off of it.
And then you get the added bonus of your magma spray is doubly useful in your deck as both a heroic activator and a removal spell. So it's kind of interesting that way.
Cool.
Okay, Cavalry Pegasus, the first one. This is a 2-mana, 1/1 flyer. Whenever it attacks, each attacking human gains flying until end of turn. Should we expect to see a lot of humans in Theros? Okay.
It's themed after humans versus monsters, kind of. Like,
okay.
That's the theme of it. That's why there are only 3 major cities, and the rest of Theros is, as far as we know, kind of a wilderness situation where there's just a lot of monsters out there.
This seems like a very good limited card.
Yeah.
As we're looking at its evasive itself, and evasive cards that grant evasion to other cards. Presumably, like you said, there's going to be quite a few humans to choose from in this set. I feel like this is a pretty highly playable limited card.
I think this one is really great.
Celestial Archon, this is our first introduction to Bestow, so maybe you want to read this one?
Bestow is, if you cast this card for its Bestow cost, it's an aura spell with enchant creature. It becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. This one has a Bestow cost of 7, 5 colorless, 2 white. Sorry, I forgot to announce what it is. Celestial Archon for 3 colorless, 2 white. It's an enchantment creature, Archon. Bestow for 5 colorless and 2 white. It's a flying first strike 4/4, and it gives enchanted creature +4/+4, and that creature has flying and first strike.
So maybe you want to explain how the implications of Bestow and what's it going to do for auras and enchantments.
I know that you and I have personally talked about this and how I feel about it. I think that this is we had a long conversation about it where we basically accepted Bestow as what it is, which is making a creature that's also an enchantment matter. Well, why would an enchantment creature matter? Or what makes an enchantment creature different from any other creature? Here is your way to do it. You are infusing that creature with the power of supposedly these celestial, from Nyx creatures. And then this creature just comes into being itself if for some reason the other creature were to vanish or whatever. I personally think Bestow it's cool for what they're trying to do, but it is a little confusing. It doesn't exactly fit the, in my opinion, the reminder text doesn't
adequately.
Yeah, it doesn't make it all clear, I guess. Just adding aura to this complicates it immensely. It doesn't have text on it that says that it's not a creature when it is an aura, which is typically something that is on creatures, or I guess on
auras.
Auras that
they have like enchant something, whatever.
They basically have to tell you that it's no longer a creature. This one doesn't even say it. So it just implies that, well, I guess it doesn't need to. If you cast this card for its Bestow cost, it's an aura spell with enchant creature. So instead, it's literally calling it out by just saying that it's an aura spell with enchant creature. That is saying it's just an enchantment aura on the stack with enchant creature, and then it'll become an enchantment aura. Enchant creature.
And this last line in the Bestow text is actually very important.
Yeah.
It becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. So this is the part that I didn't grasp when I first saw Bestow, but it's if they were to remove the creature that you're bestowing upon, then Celestial Archon will come in as a 4/4 flying first strike.
And I'm not quite sure how they're justifying that rule, because normally a spell can't resolve if its target is removed. And once you've changed this to an aura, I might be wrong on that, I guess. I don't know. I heard that from someone who I assumed had read something about it.
We should look into that right
Yeah.
now. Where would they say that?
Well, they usually do that in the pre-release primer where they do that.
So it might be too
but
early?
It might be, but just look up rules for Bestow Magic the Gathering.
Let's see if we can figure out Bestow. This is just forums. Let's see. I'm not sure if they've talked about it already, if Bestow is going to. So, okay, so
Matt Tavik.
the Magic Rules Director confirms that the spell does resolve as a normal creature instead of fizzling if the target of the aura mode is removed, and provides the comment: if you cast it as an aura and target is made illegal in response, the spell will still resolve as a creature.
Okay.
Now so it turns out that was right, and that seems a little bit, almost fundamentally different than what we've come to expect with, like you said, auras, or spells not having a target upon resolution than fizzling. So this is a contradiction to that sort of old traditional magic.
It's a rule. They've actually called it out right there. If an aura is entering the battlefield and there is no legal object or player for it to enchant, the aura remains in its current zone unless that zone is a stack. In that case, the aura is put into its owner's graveyard instead of entering the battlefield. So that says right there that it's not even going to enter the battlefield. So it's funny that it says that it can resolve as a creature. And it might be because of that last text that says if it's not attached to a creature, then it's a creature. Because that says if an aura is entering the battlefield and there is no legal object or player for it to enchant, well, that line of text says that if that's true, then it is a creature. So that it might be their catch-all statement.
I see. So they, it seems like they've been trying to do some fixes for old wordings that proved to have problems, like we learned with the Oblivion Ring thing. There tended to be a problem with that, or the same as like Fiend Hunter and whatever. So M14, we saw they fixed to that with Banisher Priest. Perhaps this is like a new way to sort of bypass that shortcoming of
auras,
of old auras.
Well, they're always trying to make auras relevant and make you want to play auras.
And maybe this is the direction they are doing.
Well, this is a really good way to make it a relevant thing. Well, I can play this on my guy, potentially kill you this turn. If you have the removal for it, I still have this.
I still have the creature.
Yeah. Unlike Totem Armor, where if you tried to play it on the creature and they removed it in response, it still died, you lost your Totem Armor, and you were fucked. It was like, not good.
So, I mean, the implications of that are pretty great for Celestial Archon, at least in Limited. We're looking at 7 mana, my guy gets huge, or I get a 4/4 flying first strike, even if they have removal.
Yeah,
so.
And my guy is huge, and then if you remove him then, I have a 4/4 first strike. And it even works that way.
And the thing is, even if you were, let's say they bestow a creature, and you let it resolve, and then the next turn you wait till they're about to attack, and then you remove it, they could still attack, because it's not like the Archon re-enters the battlefield.
You're right.
It stays.
So it wouldn't be affected by summoning sickness in that case. Yeah.
It would still be able to attack.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing, actually. I guess you could do it after they've declared the attack.
Yeah.
Then you can do it. So that's like the only time you really have to bypass this being a creature that's able to attack you. Already some crazy weird little applications too, Bestow we're thinking about. I'm glad we were able to find that article mentioning that. So that's fascinating though. That's a very different direction that I don't think I'm used to. Spells still resolving even if their target is not there upon resolution. Okay, Chain to the Rocks. This one's pretty interesting. Oh, I didn't realize it was rare. And actually, to me, it seems a little bit too unnecessary at rare.
To be
just
rare. Yeah.
Like just unnecessary at rare. But it's a 1-mana enchantment aura. Enchant mountain you control, and when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until Chained to the Rocks leaves the battlefield.
I would have really liked it if it was more Chained to the Rocks looking. This guy looks like he's got chains on his one
Or like he's
ankle.
holding them.
Yeah, and he's holding them up.
He doesn't look like he's actually stuck there.
Yeah.
Oh, I see how it's working now. He's like the other. It's just his one ankle. I feel like he can get out of that.
Yeah, or gnaw his ankle off.
Yeah, Saw style.
Yeah. I mean, like, chain him to the rocks. Like, chain him down. You know, make it agonizing.
Mhm.
That's my opinion, at least. He's got, like, walking around room with that chain length.
So we mentioned this a little bit, but obviously good with the Sacred Foundry Shockland,
Mm-hmm.
since it offers you a way to both cast it and get full value off of it with one land.
Well, and I was saying, even if you're, let's
America.
say you don't even have to be America. Let's say you're two color and one of them is white, but the other one is not red. You can still play the Shocklands that are red and X.
And potentially still get full value.
You still have 8 mountains in your deck then. I mean, it's a little narrow, but...
A little more narrow. But even if you're doing something green that's running, I guess Farseek's going, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lay of the Land, if that... Wait, that only
Lay
finds
of the
basic.
Lands could work.
Does that find any
it
land?
Doesn't, if it's basic, that's fine. You can get 1 mountain in your deck just to play Chain to the Rock.
I guess that works. But definitely interesting nonetheless, and this is sort of the new Journey to Nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But at Rare, it certainly seems strange.
Yeah.
Journey to Nowhere was common, correct? Or was it uncommon?
Journey was common.
Okay. This feels a little bit weird to me at Rare.
It is Journey for 1 mana that has a huge downside to it.
Yeah,
You
a
have
more
to be
definitely a
attached to it.
narrow aspect to it. Plus at Rare, something doesn't seem quite right about the rarity of that. Okay, Elspeth Sun's Champion. It's pretty exciting. New Elspeth. So
She's crazy.
6 mana, 4 loyalty, +1. Put 3 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. -3, destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. And then -7, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +2/+2 and have flying. So why don't you give me your opinion of her first?
I like her. I really like a 6 mana version of Elspeth that pumps to put out an army, that goes up to put out an army. I think that's great. And as I had said before, they needed to have a token producing Elspeth. Somebody had spoiled, or like they had mocked it up as a spoil, spoiled her card form before and said she was a 3 mana, did not put out a token at all, didn't do anything like that. And it was just like, no. So this is exactly what I would expect from an Elspeth. I like the emblem on it too.
So the last one that we saw from Scar's block was it made 3 white soldiers, but it went down. And it just exiled everything except non-tokens?
It destroyed all other non-token, non-land permanents.
Okay.
So she kept her army around, but then wiped the board of everything but lands and herself.
And that was good. Why do you think she didn't see much play?
That was initially Jace was still around, and Jace was around until New Phyrexia. So that's probably the main thing. I mean, Squadron Hawk, or like Cawblade was the deck that was white-blue. And they would have rather ran Gideon than Elspeth.
Yeah, and they were both at 5, right? Okay.
So until that rotated out, then Tempered Steel was like the white deck to play post-rotation, if you were going to play white. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that got real white play.
I think you're right. So it was pretty much
Something with Lingering Souls.
She was just in at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Is that essentially what it is? She could have been in the black-white token deck, but I don't even think she was in that.
I don't think she was necessary in that, but she could have been in as a one-of.
Yeah.
But that would have been her home, And the problem then was, as soon as you got Lingering Souls, there was Sorin. So Lingering Souls was actually your 5-drop after you drop a Sorin and get an emblem.
And you'd rather be able to do Lingering Souls at 3 mana to protect yourself or be aggressive, rather than wait till 5 to get your 3 ground guys. You don't even get the flyers.
Yeah.
There were a lot of aspects of Lingering Souls that sort of made the old Elspeth look
well, and that Elspeth
less
also
impressive.
didn't really work within that deck, because if you got her ultimate off, you were losing your intangible virtues and your other Sorin or whatever, There wasn't like a lot of great things about her other than putting out 3 1/1s, but they were all on the ground, like you said. So
I'm really excited about
Yeah,
this new one.
this one looks good. I like this one.
The emblem seems very relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Just basically is going to turn your army into lethal.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even do the math on it. It takes 3 turns, which means you have 9 creatures. So by the time you can do this, she'd be able to do 18 damage. Is that right? Or
27?
Oh, you're right. They'd all get... Yeah, so it's 27 damage flying on turn 9.
It's late
I mean,
game, but still.
It's cool that she's her own, a one-person, wrecking machine. So.
Yeah, and this is the direction I like for planeswalkers, too. They're kind of the big thing at the top of your curve, not necessarily the utility. I'm so glad they're walking away from Jace-style planeswalkers, where it's like, oh, I play this on turn 4, and you're just done playing, or you're in such a downward spiral that it doesn't matter.
So sort of reprisal.
Mass reprisal. It's actually Retribution of the Meek, and it's at Retribution of the Meek cost, too.
Interesting. Do we feel good about this? How do you feel about the -3 ability on it?
I think it's fine. It's the same number set as original Sorin, except for +1 instead of +2 for the army.
Okay.
So I think that for a 6-mana planeswalker, this is actually a really fair number crunch.
And are we going to be seeing some constructed play, do you imagine, with her? Or
I imagine, at least initially, before the second set comes out, she'll probably find a home somewhere. Blue-white control looks like it's going to be good, with Etherling and counterspells being relevant again, and Supreme Verdict and Sphinx's Revelation still in standard.
Yeah. All right, Gift of Immortality.
So on the other side.
Oh. Oops. Okay, so this is 2 and a white. Oh, it's a big old card. It's an aura. When enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Return Gift of Immortality to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next end step. So we were saying it's kind of like the aura indestructibility. This has kind of the added bonus of giving you additional enters the battlefield effects with those creatures. So if it's like
a flicker form of indestructibility almost.
It's certainly interesting. I don't think it's going to see much constructed play, but I definitely think it's cool and limited. And maybe someone will come up with some sort of weird enters the battlefield strategy with it.
If you have a reusable sacrifice outlet, it's okay. Not great.
Like
it's
even that Satyr guy that we're looking at later, it's kind of interesting that you can get 3
for 1 every turn.
And then get 3. You can do it twice because
it'll die though for good that time.
The second time. Yeah, you can get sort of
5 for 1.
But like you said, you can get 3 every turn with this, which is kind of cool. So it's almost like a ramper with this. Definitely interesting. I don't think it's like a highly playable rare, but it's certainly...
It's a good limited rare, I would
think.
It's
okay. I mean, indestructibility is not fantastic in core set limited. I think it's playable, though.
I think that it's different enough from indestructibility that it might be good, because
the mana cheaper is certainly relevant.
Yeah, and this requires 2 removal spells if you don't want to, like, throw your creature in front of something in combat or whatever.
And like we said, working well with enters the battlefield effects could prove itself good too. Okay, Bident of Thassa. Not a very good picture on this, so let me go back and read it. 2 colorless, 2 blue, legendary enchantment artifact. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, and then it has 1 and a blue. Tap creatures your opponents control. Attack this turn if able. What do you think about this card?
I think it's really great since they spoiled Thassa,
who we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
But this basically, I mean, what other cards? Thieving Magpie, Scroll Thief, that draws.
Coastal Piracy is that part. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card.
So it's a historic blue ability. We've seen it many times, usually attached to creatures. I love Thieving Magpie because it also had evasion. That card was always very good.
Yeah, that card was really good.
This is cool because the ability is synergistic with its other ability, which is forcing your opponent's creatures to attack this turn if able, which is also an ability we see in both blue and black, and sometimes even white. With
Blue,
like,
white, and I
black.
think red actually are the ones that get it the most.
Yeah,
Black
yeah,
gets
no,
it.
you're right. Gets it now. I guess it was historically on like Norrit and
Yeah.
and what was that one?
Before.
That one kind of screwed up.
Maddening Imp?
Yeah, that
The
was,
one that was super good? That's like tap and you can't play creatures this turn?
yeah. Look up Maddening Imp and see if you can figure out
And
why
they still won't errata it to make it like justifiable anymore.
Yeah, they've actually still kept it. It has the same ability.
Mm-hmm.
So look up why that card is weird. We don't really have time to talk about it now, but it is it's certainly strange.
Definitely check that one out.
Okay, so Biden of Thassa, I say good.
I like
definitely for limited. We'll see. I mean, Coastal Piracy probably wasn't played much in Constructed, but I don't know. That wasn't my time.
Not really.
So I feel like
it's still a really strong limited card, though, Coastal Piracy.
Was it rare then, too?
It was uncommon originally, and then they printed it at rare or in 8th edition or 9th edition when they printed it again.
Curse of the Swine, pretty interesting rare. 2 blue and X. Exile X target creatures. For each creature exiled this way, its controller puts a 2/2 green boar creature token onto the battlefield. So they didn't want to do pig, and they already have brindle boar and stuff, so they kind of wanted to maintain.
Well, pigs are boars.
That doesn't look like a boar, though. When I think boar, I mean, you're right. Just when I think boar, don't you think of a tusked
You
animal?
think of tusks and hair, yeah. But that's like the thing. I've heard that if you take a domesticated pig and you release it into the wild
for a little while,
yeah, it becomes
wild. Well,
a feral or a wild pig.
It grows fur and tusks,
yeah,
from what I understand, which is very strange.
Yeah.
And it actually, I've heard it doesn't even take that long, like within weeks.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
That is crazy.
But anyway, this card feels odd in blue. Very atypical to see.
The thing is, exile X target creatures is odd. It's hard to like wrap your head around in blue.
We can cite destruction spells in blue, like Pongify and Rapid Hybridization.
And if this was written that way, it would be too easy for you to be like, oh, I'll just pay 3 or 4 and target my 2 gods that I have out and get 2 boars myself, you know, if it was destroy. And you can still do that with Rapid Hybridization. But I think they kind of just didn't want to deal with that.
It's fascinating. I don't even think this card is really all that playable.
No.
I think it's okay. I just don't think that you're really getting enough out of it.
It might be cool with Jace if big creatures become something, and then Jace makes it so that
-1/-0.
they're like only attacking as 1/2s.
I'm not exactly sure how useful this is going to be. I guess as a 3-mana exile, like you said, one of the gods. The fact that it's actually blue removal for 3 mana for just exiling one creature and giving them a 2/2, it's not very often. In fact, I can't think of any examples. I can't think of any examples that would be exile creatures in blue, like you said. Are there any?
Icy Prison, I think, might be the only one, and you still had to pay upkeep of 3 mana, or it came back.
So yeah, so not even then.
Mass Polymorph, but that got you different creatures then.
And that was exile, not okay. So was Polymorph exile too?
No, Polymorph was put it on the bottom, I think, or bury it. Polymorph is destroy and it can't be regenerated.
Okay.
And then reveal until you hit the.
But mass is exile. That's fascinating. Yeah. Lost in a Labyrinth. So this is where we see at least the first of what we're showing you of the return of Scry. And Scry, what was the last core set that we saw it in? Was it M11 or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I liked it then. That was cool. They had 4C.
That was cool. And Preordain.
Oh, wow.
Which is the heavy hitter from them, but
I think they're done with Preordering nowadays. But it wasn't Scry's fault necessarily. It just sort of, I mean, it was in combination with the price and ability on that card. But
it was just.
They didn't realize
it wasn't just Preordain though. Preordain was not.
It was at a bad time. It was at a.
It was Delver was what it was, and it's like, oh, I'll just set this up and draw the perfect card next turn, or draw this card that I need right now and leave this one that will trigger my Delver on top.
I mean, I do have to commend Wizards recently. It's been a while since we've had that deck that's destroying the meta. I do feel like they're trying to be more conscious and aware of that. You know, arguably it looks like, you know, John Midrange maybe is on top a little bit,
But
performing a little, and
it's
not as
open.
consistent.
Yeah, it's still an open format.
We're seeing all sorts of decks in top 8. We're not seeing too much. I mean, we're seeing quite a bit of John Midrange. Sometimes we get those little bits, a couple tourneys where it gets big, but I think they're doing good right now. They're doing good work.
I agree.
Thinking about balance. This card is cool since it. I kind of like the idea of a card like this where its target creature gets -3/-0 until end of turn, scry 1. So it's a narrow combat trick that gives you card quality. So it's not card advantage. It's not really the best combat trick, but together possibly those could come together for something that's playable.
Yeah. When
So
they do this, when they do scry tacked onto the end of something, it always just drives me crazy because it never really fits the theme of the card. Like Magma Jet. What did you see in the future from blasting someone with magma?
I see.
Like how is someone being lost in a labyrinth telling you anything?
Maybe it's this thing's lost because this creature's lost in a labyrinth. You have time to scry your library.
And I can understand that with this one. I can understand that with this one.
But I do but I do see what you're saying.
You have more time to do your research.
The Magma Jet seems very. You almost think they should have named it a type of flame that like foretells the future.
Yeah,
or something.
like just foretelling flame would have been
foretelling flame. They could have, you know what I mean? And that would have actually made flavorful sense too.
That's all it would have taken.
It's like you're burning something and you're looking within the fire to see what you're going to draw. That would have made sense. But yeah, just Magma Jet.
Or like Answers in the Ashes. There, I did it.
When's Wizards gonna call us?
Yeah, come on, Wizard.
All right, Shipbreaker Kraken. Here's another monstrosity card. 6 mana, 6/6, and it's got 8 mana, monstrosity 4. If this creature isn't monstrous, put 4+1/+1 counters on it and becomes monstrous. And then when it becomes monstrous, tap 4 creatures. Those creatures don't untap during their controller's untap steps for as long as you control. Shipbreaker Kraken. Quite a strong monstrosity ability.
If you can get it going.
And we're talking about a very efficiently costed blue creature. 6 mana, 6/6. Feel good about that. Definitely highly limited playable. Because the monstrosity activated ability is so expensive, I think it's going to be a little less. We're probably not going to see it in constructed.
No.
But in limited, I think it's highly playable. And the fact that you can 8 mana monstrosity at instant speed really has some exciting implications for during your combat step. Okay, tap down your guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's really cool. I don't necessarily like the art. I think that creature is cool looking.
It does. It looks more like a crab than a kraken.
Yeah. Or even a leviathan, something like that. I understand that they're going for that crab look because krakens can have those crab claws too. It just depends on how you want to envision them. But I think in the new or the most recent War or whatever that Clash of the Titans movie was, it had crab claws. So that's probably why they're going for that.
Okay, I didn't realize.
But it's so serpentine, that
in the back.
that it really just
it looks odd.
Yeah,
it comes off looking odd.
Yeah, it looks cool. It doesn't make me feel Kraken from that.
Yeah, me neither. Okay, Thassa, God of the Sea. I think there is a picture of that already. We should see if we can find it. See if we can see it. Here we go. Okay. Zoom in a little bit here. Oh. Weird. Well,
just click on that one.
I guess we get a picture of it here. Maybe. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. It looks pretty cool.
She's really cool looking.
Okay, so this is one of probably my favorite one spoiled thus far, just in terms of its set of abilities. But we're looking at a 2 and a blue, 5/5 indestructible god creature. It's the first god creature spoiled. It's a legendary enchantment creature. That's a god. It's 5/5 indestructible for 3. As long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, Thassa isn't a creature. So each blue in the mana costs of permanents you control counts toward your devotion to blue. So I'll kind of explain what that means. That means you really have to control non-land permanents with 5 blue symbols total.
5 or more blue symbols total.
And then this Thassa becomes this 5/5 creature. Otherwise, it's just an indestructible legendary enchantment that also has at the beginning of your upkeep scry 1 and 1 in a blue. Target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Something I've already noticed is they're tacking on tons of abilities on cards in this set. I can't even remember the last time, like we'll get to the green bow that has 5 different abilities on it, and we're looking at a 3-mana permanent, and a 3-mana permanent with 5 abilities on it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a huge ability set.
And like all of those abilities are useful
in their own way. Yeah. And it's always playable because one of them's gain 3 life, so it's not like there's ever a time where you're like,
and
oh, I don't
one
know
of them is +1/+1 counter for a creature. So
Always.
2 of them are pretty much always going to be able to be activated if you're green.
But first, Thassa, what's your impression of this? I've heard sort of mixed reviews.
I really like her. I don't really understand how you could have mixed reviews about her, I guess. But
they were trying to say that at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1
isn't relevant enough.
Is not. Maybe people are overvaluing.
Yeah, but here's the thing about they're trying to make these awesome creatures for like very little mana, and they're all indestructible. So they have to have these kind of just basic enchantment abilities tacked onto them. So this one has that Scry 1, which is
similar to
Think Tank, yeah. And it also has target creature you control can't be blocked this turn, which it's an enchantment ability, or it could easily be seen on an enchantment, and then it could also be seen on a creature. And obviously at the beginning of the upkeep one could be on a creature too, but more often than not you'd see that on an enchantment.
I'm really impressed.
Yeah, I think that they're doing a good job of making these seem like an enchantment, and the same with the artifact enchantments, making them seem like an enchantment and also a creature and also an artifact. They're making it work. I was really skeptical how they're going to do that, but they are making it work.
Okay. I think so too. I think it's good, and I think at the beginning of your upkeep, Scry 1 is very good. I like that it's a one-time, 3-mana cost, and I guess I will say in some matches, like think about this in the control mirror or control match in general. Very nice to be able to scry every turn. Not so much against the red deck wins. It's probably a little bit too slow, but
it depends on what you want her to be. If you want her to just be a 5/5 indestructible creature, she could be really good if there's a decent Merfolk build out there or something like that.
Or even the Tidebinder Mage.
Yeah.
Maybe we're going to start seeing that.
I mean, Cloudfin Raptor is a good flying, aggressive blue creature if you're playing aggro, And if you can get to where when Thassa comes out, she's the 5th devotion,
So then she actually triggers.
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of cool.
I mean, there might be something there that will be available because of the fact that we have these cheap god creatures that are huge and awesome, basically.
And the Bident, it should be noted, axes 2 blue towards the devotion, so that's kind of cool too. So maybe even Bident turn 4 is enough to turn on your Thassa and let you get in for 5. So it's pretty cool. I'm definitely down with this first god creature that we've seen, so I like it. Voyage's End. This is a new unsummon effect, and it's 1 in a blue instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Scry 1. Does this one make flavorful sense to you, or does it feel like Scry just tacked on?
The name feels right? Because at the end of a voyage, you would learn something and you would go home.
Yeah, so it's almost like you learned a valuable lesson through your voyage. So that's why you get to Scry. Okay, I could see that. Or even your voyage caused you to discover like territory or something, so you get to Scry.
But I'm really interested to know where this is. Is this the edge of Theros, and this is where Nyx starts?
The picture, we should sort of describe it. It's hard to tell from this image. The quality's not the greatest, but maybe you can describe it better than I can.
Well, it looks like a shipwreck here in the foreground, and then there's a large waterfall system that is also in the picture that goes all the way to the background. So like think Angel Falls or whatever that is in Brazil or South America, wherever. I forget where it is. It's like the largest
I'm not familiar,
waterfall.
but that sounds cool.
Yeah.
And what's over here on the right?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is it
Looks
doesn't
like Nyx or nothing.
there's nothing down there. There's this dark area that looks like it could have stars or birds in it. I can't really tell, but
This one does look like a bird.
yeah. So if that's dark and starry, then makes you believe that it is Nyx down there, which means that Theros actually has a flat kind of edge of the Earth situation going on for that part of its plane.
Almost like what the early,
Yeah.
philosophers believed
Well,
about
yeah, but
the Earth.
what everyone believed about the Earth is
So
that
on
it's just,
Theros, this is sort of that mentality of the Earth is flat and you can fall off the edge of the Earth while exploring.
it could be that way, yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
But again, that's speculation. I have no idea, and I'm just looking at the art.
And it's hard to tell from that.
We can't tell if there is ground down there or not.
So let's look at some black creatures. Abhorrent Overlord, 7 mana, 6/6 flyer, demon. And when it enters the battlefield, put a number of 1/1 black harpy creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield equal to your devotion to black. And like we talked about earlier, when it refers to devotion, it's how many non-land permanents you control. Oh, actually, well, I guess it doesn't matter. Permanents or land permanents don't have color anyway. But each black in the mana cost of permanents you control counts toward your devotion to black. And then it also adds at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So, I mean, it's a little bit pricey.
But there's potential that you can get more creatures out of it than just him and the 2 that he comes with.
So really, you're paying at least 7 mana for a 6/6 flyer with 2 1/1 black harpies.
My thought is that this is an EDH kind of card that they made to be put into people's mono black EDH decks.
It's cool. Because then you can even have like Executioner's Capsule or something, or, you know what I'm saying, I guess just like even Phyrexian Arena is quite good with
very
it.
good. Gravestorm, which has 3 black.
Grave Pact.
Yeah, anything with 3 black, and there's so many 3 black things actually in black. Black is one of the colors that gets...
How about Dark Prophecy in M14?
Yeah, black is one of the colors that works very well with this. That gets
That's
the
just
triple black or 4 black.
And it synergizes with itself in getting you card draw.
Yeah.
I still think it's probably too pricey.
It's way too expensive.
It's cool.
You could bring it out with Obsidian's aid.
And Harpies and Minotaurs, some creature types we're seeing in Theros to sort of show you the relationship to the Grecian mythology.
I like the look of this demon, though. The way that they're envisioning demons for this set looks kind of cool.
I like this sort of, is almost like a...
This is the underworld, I believe.
Okay, so this image here is some
I think
sort
it's
of...
like a shrine or something.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's got like crazy, almost like acid or something around it.
Yeah, like foul, rancid water, swampy water.
That's cool. Okay, Cavern Lampod, maybe you want to talk about this card because you were kind of excited about it, so...
Yeah, this card's really cool in my opinion. It's Cavern Lampad, 3 and a black enchantment creature, nymph, and it has the bestow mechanic on it. Bestow for 5 colorless and a black. Intimidate, 2/2, and it grants +2/+2 and intimidate to enchanted creature. So I really like the way they're going with this. I don't know.
What do you think of these backgrounds?
I really like the card frame, the way of making it feel like an enchantment by giving it this kind of starry night. Yeah, that one looks really cool. Starry night feel. And I also like their idea of putting the starry sky on the shadowed portions of creatures that are from Nyx. That's the idea behind it. So whenever there would be shade on a creature from Nyx, you instead see the night sky.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So this is a common bestow creature. The Archon, obviously rare.
This is a nymph also.
I feel like, I mean, 4 mana for a 2/2 Intimidate is expensive. So any way you look at this, card, it's clunky. You know what I mean? But bestowing this feels really good.
Yeah.
I really like what this does for 6 mana. Where it's like, I have an evasion creature. Oh, you dealt with it. I still have an evasive creature.
No, that's why I really like it too, actually.
Okay. I think it's good.
Yeah, I can't really say much more about it other than nymph. they're bringing that creature type back, where previously it had only really been on Dryads.
I
And then
realize
they
that.
updated Dryads to have their own creature type. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, why would they do that?
they had done that a while ago before they knew they were going to do. It had been a long, long time ago that they took out Nymph as a creature type,
I see. So why? What made them want to bring it back?
because I think they see now that nymphs are represented in every color on a Grecian themed set.
Okay.
So they just had to
It's an important creature type
Yeah.
for this
for
block.
this particular block. So they brought it back. They'll probably leave Dryads as Dryads, and then all of the like the red, white, and blue, because I believe there will be nymphs for each color, they'll just be called nymphs, and they'll
Okay.
have a not Dryad kind of name.
Read the bones. Next card, 2 and a black sorcery. Scry 2, then draw 2 cards. You lose 2 life. So it's a 4C for 1 mana less, but you lose 2 life. Is that pretty? And it's in black. Is that basically
Yeah,
what it is?
It is.
Okay. We talked about it a little bit. I said I think we both agreed it's probably better than Sign in Blood. You are paying 1 extra mana, but it's not as color intensive. You get to scry 2, draw 2, which I mean is significantly
It seems
better
so
than
worthwhile. Yeah.
significantly better than drawing 2. It's in a very relevant creature for the color for this type of ability.
Mm-hmm.
Black does get card draw, but being able to dig or at least look potentially at 4 cards in black for 3 mana seems like it's a very good cost for what you get.
Yeah, I would definitely say that.
So then you can really look at some mashups like, let's say, red-black. And this card, even though you can't target your opponent like Sign in Blood, being able to generate that kind of card draw in red-black could be really important.
Yeah.
Even some other, even like black-white, white typically not getting card draw. So be able to mash up those 2 colors and get, without going into blue, if you really wanted to focus on the black.
Exactly.
So that's pretty cool. And you don't run into the same problem that black-white did with Sign in Blood, where it's too color intensive, so you don't have the right fixing for it.
Yeah.
Especially since we're going to be losing Isolated Chapel and stuff like that.
I really like this card.
I do too. I mean, I almost assuredly see this being played in Constructed.
Yeah.
It seems like one of the more powerful black card draw effects, especially at common. Rescue from the Underworld. This is a 5 mana instant. As an additional cost to cast it, sack a creature, and then it's choose target creature card in your graveyard, return to the battlefield, and exile Rescue from the Underworld.
At the beginning of your next upkeep, you return both those creatures.
Return that card and the sacrifice card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of your next upkeep. And you exile Rescue of the Underworld. Wow. That's really interesting. So it's a res spell that has sort of a disability, but additionally it's an instant. So instant speed res, I mean, typically we've only seen this on Makeshift Mannequin, and that's all I can really think of. There might be some Strands of Night maybe you can use there. Is that only sorcery? I'm not even sure.
Strands of Night is instant, or you can use it whenever you want.
Okay, so I mean, it still is very atypical to see instant speed res effects.
Yeah.
And this one seems like it's pretty interesting. Another one of those cards from this set where the creature you sacrifice that has another enters the battlefield effect, it can almost be a pseudo advantage or some way to generate card
if you have
advantage.
2 creatures that ever enters the battlefield effects.
Could be very good. So it's pretty interesting.
What I thought was really funny about this card is I had a card in my set that was named almost the same thing.
I believe it. Yeah, I guess we should talk about Jake actually made his own pantheon, like Grecian.
Yeah, but it was like more related to real Greek mythology.
Yeah, you were using Grecian
like
names.
Yeah.
This is using just taking all the archetypal themes of it and then completely changing the names around. So they did it which is weird. That's the way they kind of do it, though. They want it to still feel like it's their own, so that way they can take more liberties with making changes.
And it's fine. I don't necessarily agree with a card like Chained to the Rocks as like being an archetype of mythology. I know what it's referencing, but at the same time, it's like, unless you're actually referencing that exact myth and that thing in the art, then why even call it that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I digress.
Okay, Thoughtseize is coming back. We have a new picture. Kind of exciting. If you don't know what Thoughtseize is, 1 mana, rare. Target player reveals his or her hand, choose an online card from it, and that player discards that card. You lose 2 life. I mean, it's a legacy staple.
Mm-hmm.
An important card. Yep, modern staple. So Thoughtseize, very interesting that we're seeing it coming back. Probably might have a moderate effect on the price of the card. You know, we're probably going to see, not immediately, but in a few months, we're probably going to see a little bit of a Thoughtseize decrease in price. Usually it's not more than like $3 or something like that. And since this is like, it was a $30 card for a while, maybe even more.
Yeah.
I could see a 10 to 20% reduction in price, possibly, from a whole new set printing it. But, you know, it doesn't always work like that. Like Jake said, sometimes the price remains relatively stable.
I think the original Rav Shocklands were really stable after the new ones were released.
So it really didn't, yeah. But the new ones are actually still fairly cheap.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty easy to get. Okay,
Really like
Akroan Crusader, 1 mana, 1/1 human soldier, common, and it has heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets it, put a 1/1 red soldier creature token with haste onto the battlefield. Pretty cool. Do we have any instants of sorceries that target one target that boost an army? Because that feels like something that would be very useful with this. Unfortunately, I think we're looking at
Radiance from before would have been really sweet with this guy.
Yeah, because Radiance actually was targeting one thing and then sharing it.
It would have been really sweet to play Surge of Zeal on this guy with Radiance, because then the token would get the haste too.
Unfortunately, we're looking at the overload spells from Return to Ravnica block.
And it says each instead of target.
So no interaction there between heroic and that ability.
I mean, you can target your creature still. So Museum Skin.
You get the option. You're right. It's still there. It's just you're not going to get the dramatic effect that you want.
Dynacharge.
Yeah, or you know.
And actually, Dynacharge isn't a bad one to mention because Dynacharge later on can become something for the entire army that you've already gotten.
Or early on get you an additional soldier.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating.
And then
I think instants of sorceries that are cantrips as well feel very good with this. Obviously, Young Pyromancer, first turn this, second turn Pyromancer, third turn...
target this with an instant,
Get my Elemental, get another soldier, attack for 3.
Yeah.
That kind of deck with Dynacharge I could see being pretty playable. So that's a good call, I guess. Definitely interesting. I like it, the implications of it with Young Pyromancer.
Yeah.
Ember Swallower, 4 mana, 4/5 Elemental, 7 mana, Monstrosity 3, and then when an Ember Swallower becomes monstrous, each player sacks 3 lands. What do you think about this?
It's cool.
By the time you get it online, it feels a little bit late where 3 lands
doesn't matter anymore.
As much, yeah. Maybe a green-red ramp could be more brutal.
Yeah. The art is kind of...
wishy-washy?
Yeah. It looks more like a common to me.
It's like a scorpion dog thing.
I think it's like a Manticore?
No, it could be like a Manticore, yeah. A lava Manticore. Just in a vacuum, though, I mean, a 4 mana, 4/5, obviously powerful, very efficiently costed, especially when we're in terms of red creatures in general. 7 mana, it seems like so far the monstrosity prices are pretty expensive. It's not cheap to do it. Even the Polychronos Mythic, I mean...
He's very expensive.
The cheapest you can do it at is 3, and it's still, you don't get a very good effect at 3. So...
You get a 6/6 that gets to ping something.
Yeah, it's not as good as you want it to be, but that also is a 4 mana 5/5, so I am seeing this theme of very efficiently costed
and then
creature.
They get monstrous,
and then the monstrous price is where it gets pricey, but you get a whole new... So it's interesting. I mean, if they designed it that way and they followed through it that way, that tells me they play tested it and liked the way that felt the most.
Well, I can imagine that you want to feel good about playing this creature, not playing your 1-drop and then making it monstrous 8 turns later.
Yeah,
you know?
so monstrosity is more of the icing on the cake ability.
I think they're making it as a Timmy mechanic. This is my big guy. It came out big. Now I'm going to make him bigger, you know. I think that's what they were going for.
Hammer of Perforos, 1 and 2 red, legendary enchantment artifact. Creatures you control have haste.
2 and a red, sack a land, put a 3/3 colorless golem enchantment artifact creature token onto the battlefield. So obviously good implications for devotion. This represents 2 of the 5 colored you're going to need for your god. We were talking about how good this is as a both a hasty creature when you do it on your turn and you have extra lands you don't need, and both as a defensive dodge supreme verdict creature at end of your opponent's turn when you have extra mana. So I very much like the versatility of it. I could easily see a red deck wins sideboarding it, maybe possibly main decking it depending on the meta, but it's some way to let them deal with mana flood in a very positive way, since it's proactively making creatures that your control player has to deal with, or at least
it's
destroy
actually
your
just like
hammer.
a complete pain in the ass for a control player to deal with this card if your red deck wins. I think it would be an awesome sideboard card against control, because even if they're prepared to wipe your board every turn,
you're getting that. And 3 is kind of the magic number of power where it's just annoying enough where you don't want to be hit that many times.
And you can sack 1 and leave it out there and just hit them with that a few times. I mean, this is like
carefully.
And it's colorless, the golem is, so no protection is going to save them, nothing like that. I really think this card could be very good against control.
I agree. Magma Jet returning is the reprint. Liquid Hot Magma. 1 in a red, instant, deals 2 to a creature or player and scry 2. Also known as, what did you call it? Something to the ashes.
Answers from Ashes.
Answers from the Ashes. Better name. We just thought of a better name. Why aren't we getting paid for this?
Yeah.
Ordeal of Perforos, 1 in a red, enchantment, aura, enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then if it has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, sacrifice Ordeal of Perforos. When you sacrifice Ordeal of Perforos, it deals 3 damage to target creature or player.
I really like this card.
Interesting aura. I'm thinking it's going to be reserved for limited, but I actually really like what it does in limited. It really can. It actually interacts well with other cards that can +1/+1 counters.
Well, I was thinking how good this card is. Really good with Rakdos Cackler.
Yeah, then you only have to pump twice, and then you sacrifice and you get a lightning bolt.
On turn 2, it's already up to 2 counters, so then the next turn you're going to get a lightning bolt and have a 4/4. You know?
I wish it was, then if it has 3 or more +1/+1 counters, sacrifice or deal Perforos at end or at beginning of end step or something. So that way you still get to do your attack, plus then you get to sacrifice it and get a nuke.
You do.
Oh, because you... But I guess I was saying with... But when you attack with it, it gets the +1/+1 counter. So you don't get... Once it has the third +1/+1 counter, then you have to sacrifice it. I was thinking it would be cool if it got to keep that +1/+1 counter for that attack. You get in for that damage, and then at the beginning of the end step, then you sacrifice the Ordeal and get the lightning bolt.
Why would that be cooler? Because you get the lightning bolt immediately during the attack step, so you can clear a blocker.
I get it.
And then you can hit them for the extra damage.
No, I guess you're right. Because it's counters and not like +1/+1 until end of turn.
The aura isn't granting the buff. The creature is getting the permanent.
That's actually better than I think I realized on this card. So that's actually really cool. The creature is permanently getting changed, and then eventually you're building towards something that's going to get rid of the Ordeal, but give you value in the form of like a Searing Spear sort of effect. So that, I guess that is pretty interesting. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's good with Unleashed creatures or something like that.
I think it's really cool with Unleashed creatures or even Evolve guys. You know,
you might be onto something there. That's
it's
a good idea.
really good with that Akroan Crusader. If you can do that guy turn 1 and then Ordeal of Perforos on him turn 2.
Get a soldier,
and
attack.
Get a 2/2 on turn, really a 2/2 on turn 1, and then you played a 1/1 for your Ordeal of Perforos.
It's pretty cool.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I like that. Rageblood Shaman, 3 mana, 2/3 Minotaur Shaman, trample other Minotaur creatures you control, get +1/+1, and have trample. So they're even going as far as making
Heirloom Minotaur Lord.
It is a Heirloom Minotaur Lord. Strict upgrade.
It is.
Might I add. It's got trample itself.
I really do like that card though, the Minotaur Shaman.
So Rageblood Shaman, pretty interesting. Definitely
Boros Reckoning.
Definitely trying to demonstrate that Minotaurs are a prominent tribe within Theros, which we've mentioned before. Two-headed Cerberus, 1 and 2 red, 1/2 double strike hound. Common. It's cool. This is one of those cards that would be very good with that Ordeal per Feroz, seeing as it has double strike. So that's pretty cool. Sure, it's going to see a little bit of limited play.
Yeah, I definitely think that. I like that card.
Okay, green, Anthusa Satessan Hero. 5 mana, 4/5, legendary human warrior with heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets it, up to 3 target lands you control each become 2/2 warrior creatures until in turn they're still lands. So, kind of cool. Lets you turn buff spells into additional beaters, and quite a few additional beaters too. And if you have the 5 mana to cast her, you should have the lands to cheaply buff your creature and still attack for the additional 6 damage. So this really gives you a perk of at least attacking for 10 damage on turn 6 if you have a spell that can target her. Pretty interesting. Pretty powerful.
Yeah, I like her.
Good rare. Bow of Nilia. This is probably one of the Forerunners' powerful cards we've seen so far spoiled. 1 and 2 green, legendary enchantment artifact, part of that same cycle we've seen. I'm assuming Bident is the blue version of this. Okay, and then the hammer is the red version. The green version is attacking creatures you control have death touch, and then 1 and a green tap. Choose one. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, or it deals 2 damage to a creature with flying, or you gain 3 life, or put up to 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order. So in terms of the most powerful aspects of this card, probably the +1/+1 counter is definitely relevant. I guess the weakest aspect is maybe the putting 4 cards on from your graveyard on the bottom. You know, it's okay. It's just not anything super special. And then probably the 3 life is not. It's okay. It's reasonably relevant. And then the 2 damage to creature flying definitely can be relevant in some parts. But the +1/+1 counter and attacking creatures you control having death touch, definitely 2 very powerful aspects.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's pretty unheard of that you would see 5 abilities on a 3 mana card. What do you think? Are we going to be starting to see this in Constructed almost assuredly?
Well, it works really well. I really like that they're making them work really well with the gods themselves, because creatures you control have death touch, attacking creatures you control have death touch, and she gives your other creatures trample. So you attack in with all your guys as trample death touchers.
That's a good point. It's very powerful. We haven't even done the green one yet, but you'll see her in a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of old cards that are cheap and maybe have a ton of abilities. The only one that really comes to mind is like Obelisk of Alara. Remember that one?
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap, but it did have 5 abilities. Yeah. And actually, I mean, that card kind of reminds me of this one because it's there's almost a little bit of overlap there. You know what I mean? With the life gain aspect and I actually forgot all the abilities on it.
It was draw 1, discard 1, gain 5, +4/+4, -2/-2 to a creature, and 3 damage to a player on Obelisk.
Wow. Well, I will say that ability set is better, but also keep in mind that you had to have the colors for each of those abilities, whereas this generates a lot of green abilities for 2 mana and a lot of relevant green abilities at that. So highly playable card. If you haven't noticed already, they mentioned this. There's going to be quite a few legendary permanents. So it's not like you can just... I think they're conscious of putting 5 abilities on a 3 mana card because it's legendary and it's an enchantment and it's an artifact. A lot of ways to get rid of it, but we should mention the new legendary rule. So actually they can't play it to break.
Yeah, so everybody...
No longer, everybody could have a Bow of Nilia. But so no longer do you have to worry about that, but still you have to be conscious of how many Bow of Nilias you're putting in your deck, because if you're running like 4, you're going to run...
Well, and in reality, it's not like they would even work that well if you had multiples. You know, except for gaining 6 life, potentially, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But in general, like, you don't want too many of a legend in your deck. I mean, even most decks that were doing Geist of Saint Traft were probably running 3. I guess they were running 4 quite a few times.
4.
But Geist of Saint Traft is different because he's so weak.
Important to see, too.
And weak without that angel. He's just a 2/2, no evasion. So I guess you're right about that. But But still, like legendary permanents, typically you're not putting more than 3 in your
Mhm.
deck. Geist, I guess, being almost one of the sole examples. I guess Jit, too, was played as 4 of, but that was more for your opponents,
Yeah, so you
more
could
so than
stop
your own.
theirs, yeah.
And that might have actually been really similar to why Geist have Saint Trap. So that's actually interesting. Now that we have this new legendary rule, are we going to see an alteration in how many you're running?
Well, it's no longer necessary to run your own to kill theirs, so
Yeah.
you never run into that problem.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see the new generation of legendary permanents unaffected by your opponent's clone effects and same spell.
Yeah.
Commune with the gods. 1 and a green sorcery. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or enchantment card from among them into your hand. Put the rest into your graveyard. So, is this a reprint?
No.
Okay. Seems similar to stuff we've seen in green.
Oh, yeah, it's been done. I mean, like
What was
mulch, grizzly, what was the grizzly salvage? Is
Yeah.
it? Those are probably the 2 closest. Also, Gift of the Gargantuan.
It's similar to that
Mm-hmm.
as well. Yeah, you're right. It's actually very much like Grizzly Salvage, except not instant.
Yeah.
Okay. Nilia, God of the Hunt. So here's the green god creature. 4 mana, 6/6, indestructible. As long as your devotion to green is less than 5, Nilia isn't a creature, and then it has other creatures you control at trample, and 3 and a green. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Not as good as Thissa in my mind, but still a...
Her activated ability is a little expensive.
Yeah, a little
I
bit
feel like
clunky.
at 3 mana it would have been fine.
But I like that you've drawn it in with the Bow of Nilia. It makes sense. Getting the Death Touch with the Trample is extremely powerful. In fact, I don't even think we talked about they haven't even done Death Touch Trample on one card because of the rules of Magic and how powerful it is in conjunction with one another.
Together.
Pile of Kranos we've talked about. Reverent Hunter, 2 and a green, 1/1, human archer. And when it enters the battlefield, put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to your devotion to green. Oh, that's pretty fascinating.
Does it look like he's holding Nilia's bow there?
It's hard to tell. It definitely looks like a large bow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. 3 mana, 1/1 at rare seems a little bit underwhelming, but since you're getting the +1/+1 counters
He's
on
at
it,
least a 2/2.
yeah. So I mean, he's definitely
He should have
playable
had reach.
because he's an archer.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I feel like they were a little bit careful with this at rare, but still,
reach is not like a powerful ability.
I'm not always great at evaluating mechanics when they're first revealed. So far, devotion isn't even like mechanic in the traditional sense of like making a unique ability for a card. It's more like allowing a card to have its full capabilities.
Yeah, it's more like a way for them. It's an ability word instead of a like a keyword ability. So it's just giving them a way to shorthand something, which in this case is each colored mana symbol in the mana cost of permanents you control counts toward your devotion or whatever.
And I was telling you yesterday how much I actually like devotion, even though it only in theme with how this set works, because it feels so correct with the god creatures that they would have to have the devotion before they can take their form amongst their devotees.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot. I do think that's flavorful.
I do too.
But Reverend Hunter seems like they were a little bit cautious
I think
with that.
it's probably in line with Champion of Lambholt. Might be really good in limited, but probably not going to see much constructed play.
Yeah. I mean, no trample or no reach really does seem like a shortcoming of that card.
A reach is just like, just throw it on there. It's not even that good.
Or it even would have been cool if it had like tap, deal damage equal to a flyer equal to a number of +1/+1 counters on it.
Yeah,
then it kind of
something
works.
archery.
Yeah.
But just making it like kind of a vanilla guy that...
It's not very exciting.
Yeah.
Is that a weird... That's not the same mana symbol that the other ones
That's
have,
the
is it?
Heroes versus Monsters set symbol.
1 and a green, Satyr Hedonist, 1 and a green, 2/1 Satyr creature, 1 red, sacrifice it, add 3 red to your mana pool. Kind of interesting. Are we going to see somebody trying to do something with that, or probably not breakable?
Yeah.
Presumably. Definitely limited playable.
Holocrynos is also that art that they used for that is the Heroes versus Monsters art.
Oh, okay.
So that will be different art in the set.
That's interesting to note. Looks like we got about 7 more for you here, so we'll just quickly jam through these. Anax and Cymede, we talked about him already. Daxus of Melitus, this is 1 colorless, white and a blue for a 2/2 legendary human soldier. Daxus of Melitus can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater, and when it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library. Gain life equal to that card's current mana cost, and until end of turn you may cast that card, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. So a lot of parts to this card. The pseudo evasion in sort of an odd way, but a way that could work against the right deck.
Works right for blue and white, actually, too, within their realm of possibility.
And, I mean, a lot of different things you're generating that are important for blue-white. Not the traditional control deck. It almost seems like it would make more sense in a tempo-driven deck with the detained creatures from Azorius allowing you to get in with it. So that's something to think about with this. But I mean, if you're just getting a land off the top, you're technically casting lands if you were to get a land, or it wouldn't let you even play it?
Until end of turn, you may cast it. So no, if you get a land, you will be unable to play it.
Okay, so kind of a shortcoming of the card a little bit there, but I still like what it's doing for white and blue. I don't think it'll see too much play. It's just a little, it's a little bit too odd and random.
It's not hexproof, which works really well.
A little bit too odd and random, I think. Maybe sideboardable, possibly against the right deck that's running super high converted mana cost stuff. But even then, you're just gaining life. I'm not quite sure. I do like that you can cast their cards, though.
I think it's really fun for EDH, and I think that's where it shines.
No, it's a good call. I agree with that.
But
this has already had some good upgrades to EDH. Destructive Revelry is a red and a green instant, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and it deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. I think this is going to be a very high pick and limited. We've already, how many of these last few cards, how many of the cards that we've talked about already are enchantment of some kind? It feels like the vast majority of them.
Yeah, the fact that it's an instant too, so
it feels like hard removal.
And shock, yeah.
It feels like hard removal. It may be one of those same things that we saw in Scar's Block, where Shatter is like a straight-up Doomblade, you know, so could be something to think about. And we actually talked about earlier that maybe Wear and Tear, we're going to see a new life breathed into that card post-rotation. Suddenly it's going to be, you know, destroying legendary artifacts and destroying legendary enchantments at the same time.
Well, the only other legendary enchantments that we've seen are the gods, and they can't be destroyed by it.
True, but doesn't Wear exile?
No.
Okay.
Neither side of it does. They both destroy.
Okay.
So you'll never use it to kill a god, but you can use it to kill the artifact the god's artifact, and then some other celestial creature from Nyx or whatever.
Okay, Medomai the Ageless, 6 mana, 4/3, legendary Sphinx creature with flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, take an extra turn, but you don't get to go infinite. It can't attack during extra turn. So obviously they had to have that, otherwise you would just be able to take the game over. What do you think about this?
I'm not as impressed, I guess, but it could have been better. I think that if it was just Metamai can't attack during your next turn, would have been fine. But then you could play another Metamai to kill the one that you just got, or that just hit, so that you could attack with that one. But I still don't think that's too strong. You know, especially if this is a mythic.
They must have thought of something. They must have seen something annoying with it. I mean, the concept of what it's trying to do seems annoying, where it's like I'm attacking you and I'm taking an. I mean, that's a lot of benefit, a lot of upside.
Well, if you had something out that let you have 2 of them out, or if you had like Sakashima out as a copy of it, and it had the text I was talking about, you could swing alternatively with them and never not take an extra turn. So it's a fix, but it looks ugly on the card.
And we don't know the rarity yet. We're assuming mythic, but I guess possibly rare.
I assume it's a mythic, but It could be a rare.
Feels like a mythic effect. It's a very rare, or a very effect we don't see often.
Mm-hmm.
Underworld Cerberus. 5 mana, 6/6. It's in black and red. And a lot of abilities on this mythic. Can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. Cards in graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities. And when it dies, exile it, and each player returns all creature cards from his or her graveyard to his or her hand. Where does this fit? I mean, all 3 abilities are cool. Is this gonna see play though?
No.
It's a lot of evasion. A 5 mana 6/6 that can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures is almost can't be blocked in my mind. It's almost a 5 mana 6/6 unblockable. It really isn't, but 3 or more is a lot.
I do really like it.
The 2 last abilities are potentially kind of unexciting. But the cards in graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities kind of feels the weirdest to me in red and black.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It feels much more like a white ability or green. Yeah.
Green's done it before.
I feel like white's done it too, but maybe not.
White could have it. I would feel like that would be fine.
Or I mean, maybe even blue. I mean, because it can't be
the fact
target.
that cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities. What they're going for is that this is an underworld Cerberus, and it's guarding the things in graveyard.
I see. And actually,
it's strictly a flavor-driven ability, not color pie-driven.
We've seen it on that jailer, that zombie jailer.
Yeah, but that's not even this. That's cards in graveyards lose of all abilities.
Okay. There's a little bit of overlap room there, though, because it is black spells that are affecting the entirety of your graveyard.
Of the colors that can stop people from targeting stuff, it's white, blue, and green.
Okay.
And
so
that's why it's odd.
In the 2 colors that we wouldn't expect it in.
But a Cerberus, and in this case the underworld one, is guarding the underworld. So
maybe well, I guess the colors feel right on it too.
Yeah. It's just protecting the stuff in the underworld.
Okay. I mean, I can accept it, but I think the evasion on it is probably the most relevant, and the 3rd ability I could see being relevant in the right circumstances.
Okay, so now I get it. So it's alive and protecting the things in the underworld. The other one is it's dead and people are free to escape the underworld.
Oh, okay. That's cool flavorfully.
Yeah. So it's very much flavor driven.
Witch's Eye, 1 mana artifact, equipment. Equipped creature has 1 tap, scry 1, and it equips for 1. It's kind of cool. It's an uncommon. We're going to see some limited play with this?
I think so. I think that's a fine place for it. It might even... I don't think it's good for constructed, but it might be okay for EDH or something.
I feel like it's pretty playable. I keep forgetting if Scry's good or not. I want to say that do you remember what was the last artifact that
Crystal Ball.
Yeah. And I feel like Crystal Ball definitely...
was very good.
Yeah.
But it was looking too deep each turn.
That's true. I feel like I'm trying to remember how good it was in Limited, though. It didn't feel insane. It wasn't like an absolute slam.
It wasn't because you weren't drawing and you never had the option to draw. It was like a very fixed Sensei's Divining Top.
How much? It costs 1 to use?
3 to play, 1 to use.
Okay, that's a pretty good cost. All right, last card, spoiled thus far. Nixos, Shrine to Nyx. Legendary land, tap to add 1 to your mana pool. 2 in tap, choose a color, add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. So, fascinating what it's doing, but it's rewarding any color you're playing, and it rewards it based on how many colored mana symbols you have. So, some potentially really good ramp. You have a lot of colored mana symbols in your cards. I'm trying to think of stuff from Return to Ravnica that has a lot of...
Boros Reckoner.
Yes. Are there any other hybrid spells that have...
Night Veil Spectre is the only other 3, I think. So it was Reckoner and Night Veil. Yeah, because it's Deathrite Shaman is the rare.
I feel like Desecration Demon is a good one, since it's getting you 2, and it's already in a very efficient flyer.
Yeah, the problem is there's just not... Black is probably the one that's going to benefit the most, because you can play Dark Prophecy.
Yeah, I agree. Dark Prophecy is huge.
And then... I just don't think there are a ton of hybrid cards.
What about just Rakdos Shred Freak? Gives you a little bit in red and black. yeah, I guess we'd have to look. That'll be our project for next time. But look forward to some more
I guess
spoilers.
red could also benefit from it in red deck wins if you wanted to play an X spell.
Yeah, that's true. So then Boros Reckoner once again comes
And
really.
Ash Zealot. And
Yeah, it's good. So the rest are lands that are spoiled, but so far pretty significant start.
Yeah.
We've now seen all the mechanics, right?
Mhm.
So we're aware of everything they're doing. Bestow kind of breaking some traditional, setting a new precedent
Yeah.
for what auras and enchantments are capable of, really. And setting all sorts of new precedents, actually. This whole idea of enchantment permanent mashup, having two different, bringing those two card types together
Yeah.
for one, odd looking finished product in some cases. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get over this whole, I'm a flying first strike 4/4, but enchanted creature it's like, whoa, that's weird that you're putting,
Yeah.
text on one card. But when you read how Bestow works, and now that we know how it works in relationship to spell fizzling and resolution, it's definitely a fascinating direction that they're deciding to go.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they started by trying to do Lycids again, but then
I remember
you know what I'm saying?
those were like pseudo creature enchantment.
Yeah, and they
kind of
came
creature
and they
enchantment.
came to this where it's like you get it one time, you can play it as an enchantment, and then for the rest of the time it's a creature. But it's like it's a decent creature, it's not just like
A 1/1.
Yeah, that
Which they were in each color, right?
the first group of them were 1/1s for 2 in each color. The second group was 2/2s for 3 in each color.
I see.
And then in Exodus, they printed Dominating Lycid and Transmogrifying. So they just did 2 more. One for blue that was Control Magic, and then one colorless one that did Ashnod's Transmograph.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this one. Email me at mortarpod@seemsgoodmagic.com. I'm still doing M14 drafts. I think for the next video, I'm going to talk about how I'm going to sort of, my new system is going to be sort of a mix between Swiss and 8/4. If I win a Swiss, I'll do an 8/4, and then if I lose in the 8/4, I'll go back to Swiss. But if I make it to the finals of the 8/4, I'll continue doing 8/4s. So that's going to be sort of my new drafting system. I feel like just because I didn't have a lot of success early in M14, I think it's kind of a safer direction for me. But it just saves me a little bit of money, and I don't think the quality gets affected too much by it. Follow us on Twitter at SeemsGoodMagic, and you'll know when I'm on live streaming or if I have to cancel, for any reason. But right now the schedule is Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central Time. I think that's it. All right, thanks for tuning in this week. We'll hopefully have some more Theros updates for you next week. See you guys later.
Later.